Good morning, all, and happy Friday to each and every one of you. Welcome to this edition of Balance in Life. I am Crystal Tyler Mackey, welcoming you on behalf of Virginia Cooperative Extension, our Human Development Program team, and our partners, North Carolina Cooperative Extension. We are so happy today to welcome back a previous guest, but no stranger to us, our colleague, Dr. Michelle Eley from North Carolina Extension at North Carolina A&T State University. She's going to talk us through ways that we can actualize our dreams, try to put some action to the things that we are wanting to accomplish, to move from, you were on last week, Alan talked about daydreaming, right? But to move from what might be a daydream to what could become our reality. Having said that, welcome if it's your first time, welcome back if it's not. A quick note or reminder to some, we are pretty active in the chat on these sessions, so please feel free to engage in the chat box. If you are in the chat box, the first thing that you will see is it's going to say panelists. If you don't do anything, then whatever you post in the chat will only be seen by my colleagues, Herman, Bethany, and Dr. Eley, and myself. If you want to share your thoughts, and we hope you do, with others, you'll have to choose the drop-down menu that says all panelists and attendees, and that way everyone can see. And I'm so excited because I see so many of you have already done that with your good mornings today. So I'm going to quickly move out of the way because I am going to be taking notes so that I can have some things that I've been dreaming about get closer to reality. So thank you all for being here and welcome, Dr. Eley.
All right, well, welcome everybody. I'm so happy to be here. As Crystal was mentioning too, and you can tell, you say Dr. Eley, you can call me Michelle. I mean, I'm among friends and I tend to be very casual in some of these settings, but basically, I had a pleasure of working with Crystal a few years ago, more closely with the work that has been introduced through this series, Come Together for Racial Understanding. And so I had the opportunity to interface with some of you who were maybe on the June, a session that we did in June. And so she was so excited then when she was telling me how this series has taken a life of its own. And so it's really nice to show that the stick-to-itness that all of you have had in terms of coming back week to week, but also want to just give, just want to acknowledge Crystal and the team there at Virginia State, Bethany and Herman, and many others that may be working behind the scenes to bring this series to you today. And so just a few introductions in terms of what I do. So I work with North Carolina Cooperative Extension, as was stated, and so I serve as the Community Economic Development Specialist. And so I have the fortunate pleasure to work across the state, helping communities and families and farmers and youth to kind of look at some of their goals and some of their dreams, and how do we help provide information and programming that helps empowers people to make the change or create the change that it. And so some of my programming, development and planning, I do quite a bit of work in working with groups with strategic plans. I am an agriculture economist by training as well as a sociologist and in some other areas. But I have done quite a bit of work working in our local food system area and working with small and limited resource farmers and kind of giving them access to programming resources that help sustains them. And so, like I say, Extension has been just such a fortunate place or space for me to give back to my own community. So I really have enjoyed the journey so far. And so when Crystal had called me and asked me to present a little bit about, or present what I present, I guess, in reference to this Balancing Life series, I kind of had to pause a bit, because in the hurriness of the day that we talked, but I also was reflecting on all that has happened this past week or the past month, or even since the new year, you know, and I had to think about it. It's like, well, what can I share that maybe can offer some insights, you know, because I feel like I'm like a little rabbit at times, and I'm like running from here to there, and you may feel the same way. And so, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak. And so I took some time to kind of think about, well, if I had to share something with a friend or with a peer, or maybe people I may not know, you know, what could I say to them to encourage them or to motivate them? And I know, you know, this is a new year for us, so happy new year to everyone. But as I was reflecting on today's title, I couldn't help to think about, this is a new year. And what does it mean to us when we are beginning a new year, approaching a new year? And so if you want to take a moment to maybe say in the chat, how many of you are in the habit of making a New Year's resolution? And maybe just acknowledge that in the chat space for a minute. And I'm going to keep talking, and then we kind of reflect on what you're sharing. For many, the advent of a new year means big promises to make big steps. For some of us, we might be dreaming about, I want to buy a new car, a new house. I think I need to exercise more, lose a little weight. Maybe I might get a new job, make more money, have a better life. Some of us may be aspiring to start a new business. Others of us might be thinking, how can I just avoid making the mistakes I made last year? You know, so all of these things might be circulating in your mind as you're thinking about, okay, this is a start of a new year. And so a new year also represents a reboot, a restart, a time to focus. And so as we look at some of the resolutions, I would just want to know, did anybody say in the chat about any comments about resolutions?
Yeah, this group, some said, yep, and most said, no, not anymore. Or they said, I turn them into goals, or I make vision boards, or yeah. So,
Okay.
So the question about, do you make resolutions? They're like, oh, a lot of them have said no, but I do make vision boards, or, you know, they led me to disappointment.
Yes.
Some are really elevated I've written SMART goals. So
Yeah.
this is some
Okay.
very
Well,
smart people.
it definitely, and I definitely understand the sentiments that you have about making resolutions, but resolutions in the very simplest way are goals. And we know that some of you have decided not to make resolutions, in part because, as you know, as weeks and months go by and we get into the hustle and bustle of life, you know, these ideas that we set for us at the beginning of the year sometimes become very faint memories. And so obviously most of us may have failed achieving those goals. Sometimes we might forget them. Sometimes we get distracted. I raise my hand. I'm one of those people. Or you just give up. And so we want to avoid that from happening and think about, how do we balance, you know, sometimes setting goals, actualizing your dreams can lead to more balance, particularly if you're very thoughtful about what are those things that you value about your life that you want to maintain and preserve and protect, okay? So, when I was just saying that when Crystal had asked me, I had to struggle. I paused a bit, but I hope that something that I say today is going to help you realize that there are some simple things that I can do to actualize the things that I hope for. And so please know that this is a space for you to chime in as much as you like, as Crystal has invited us to do in the opening of this call. Okay, I got to advance my slide here. So when I thought about a dream, I said it's good to kind of start with a concept for many reasons, because sometimes when we think about dreams, we think about them literally or figuratively. And so I thought about something that I came across recently about how a dream was being defined in a particular context. And so in this case, I'm kind of defining a dream as a condition or achievement that is longed for. And so, you know, we all know that our dreams are in some ways inspired thoughts or ideas. And sometimes in order for you to bring a vision or a dream to pass, you have to write it down. You have to verbalize it and things like that. And I think from last week from the speaker, you know, he provided a lot of information about, you know, actualizing the things that you want to do and having a vision. And I remember two of the quotes from his lesson, from his session last week, about how a vision without action is a daydream. Action without a vision is a nightmare. And of course, we want to avoid those two scenarios from happening. And so want to take a moment, maybe at this time in the chat, if you would like to do so, take a minute to state if you have a dream for yourself for 2021.
And just a quick reminder, if you'd like for the rest of us to be able to see it, you can choose all panelists and attendees. Michelle, you might want to ask what it is, because I'm seeing a lot of yeses.
Okay.
If you want to ask what the dream
can you
is.
Okay, and if you can expound, those of you that may have mentioned yeses, please expound. If you can state one goal or one dream that you're pondering about right now. And you might have to help me because they're coming in very fast.
around growing business or starting their own business, going back to school or completing school.
Wow.
Some are more personal. They're just wanting to get out of this COVID stuff and see their grandkids again, our family. A lot are talking about health aspects, either losing weight or eating healthier, or just having more focus on your health and your fitness.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sorry for that. I got stuff falling off the table.
I see some travel dreams in there too.
Okay.
Yeah, take a trip to my country was one.
Wonderful. So starting a lifestyle brand, I see a lot of taking time for self, vacationing, expanding, you know, our knowledge in terms of going back to school, branching off to new careers, lifestyle changes in terms of buying a new house. This is great. This is great. So let's just kind of pause there, because maybe we can build on some of these things that you have mentioned before. But it's good that you're thinking and that you're considering now. What are some things I want to aim for, and what will it take for me to get there? Knowing that would be the case. Okay, let's see. Answer the next slide. Okay. Next.
As you're advancing, Dr. Eley, it just strikes me how many people have posted things about writing books.
Yeah.
A lot of authors in this space.
Mm-hmm.
That's really, I did not know that. That's really interesting too.
And I think that's a beautiful way. I think we learn a lot when we write. It causes us to be very reflective, but it also causes us to learn maybe a new skill set that we didn't have, you know. And then sometimes it allows us to inspire, you know, those around us. And so it's nice that folks are looking at different outlets to be creative and things of that nature. So let's reflect on this question for a moment. How can we maximize our efforts and expand our impact so that our good intentions turn into real change? When I first read this question, it was so powerful to me. I felt like it was speaking to me. This is almost like a mantra. I feel like this question nicely summarizes how I feel on most days in my professional life. In extension, we're often concerned about how we impact the lives of other people. through providing programs and information in the form of, providing resources and information in the form of programs and services. And so when I started with North Carolina Extension about 15 years ago, one of the prominent taglines was empowering people, providing solutions. And in many ways, that it has been kind of our way of how we operationalize our work. And it also speaks to the practicality in terms of what we're trying to impact and what are some of the outcomes we're trying to achieve. Extension is that very thing to me. It's about empowering people, providing solutions. And today, Extension, we look at all the work that we do, helping farmers improve their lives through demonstrations, consultations, research. We also look at how we enrich the lives of young people and kind of help them to advance their life skills through club work, through enriching school experiences, providing them public speaking and leadership opportunities. Extension is also about building families and helping communities. And you can just add to this list too. Some of you have had past experiences working with Extension, and you can say how Extension has impacted you. But one of the things that I look at in this question is, even though all these words mean something to me, it makes me think about the first word, which is how. Consider some of the goals and dreams that you have. And what would be the steps that would take you to achieving that? And so, just something to think about as we are kind of moving through the session today. And I think it's important for us to think about, well, as we think about the goals that we have set for ourselves for 2020, I'm sure you may be thinking about, well, how am I maximizing, or what will it take for me to maximize my efforts? We know that we're operating with time. Time is a fixed commodity. And we know with that time, there's a lot of things that we're trying to do in a 24-hour span. And so all of us are looking at, how do we maximize our efforts, my abilities, my talents, the time, my resources, the money, things like that. How do I make sure that I'm being impactful? And how do I make sure also that I'm operating with good intent, okay? And so these are things that I constantly ponder about. And so if any of you want to add any comments to this question, or how this question may resonate with you, that would be fine. And we'll try to capture some of that information and share it with others. So I want to just maybe take the remaining time to talk about a few points that I want to share. And this kind of drives a little bit closer to home of just some takeaways. Number one, I think it's important for you to know your why. Number two is the how. Again, we talked about that a little bit in the slide before, but having a strategy matters. And then number three, because of time, we're going to talk a little bit about act. We talk about actualize. That's kind of in our subtitle. And so with actualize, meaning in part that you have to act. Okay. So in this, I just want to kind of look at find your why. And so, as you know, there's two questions noted at the bottom, and we're going to get to that. But I think what I want to share with you about this is that there's a book out there called Find Your Why, a practical guide for finding purpose. And it's written by Simon Sinek, excuse me if I'm pronouncing his name wrong. And he writes about that it is only when you understand your why, which is your purpose, you will become more capable of pursuing the things that would give you fulfillment. And so it also serves as a point of reference for all of your actions, the decisions, from the moment on, allowing you to measure that progress, knowing when you have met your goals. And so when you think about this graph over here to the right, there's a lot kind of intertwining circles. And so you will see such words as passion. You also see profession. Profession kind of ties to the things that we're good at, as well as things that we can be paid for. You know, a lot of us, like, we work in extension, but I also know that I love doing outreach. You know, that's important to me, giving back to my community, working with people, helping people. Those are things that I feel that I'm pretty good at. And so therefore, that was one reason why I looked at extension as a profession. We also, of course, passion, things that we love to do, your mission. Your mission could be the things that you're called to do, you know, or the things that drive you from one day to the next. Or you feel that it's needed, you know, vocation, what that the world needs. And so when you think about some of these things, it just all translates that there is a reason for being. You know, this is anything that gives you a sense of purpose to your life and makes it worthwhile. And so some of you in your goals, when we asked you about your goals, you mentioned quite a bit about things that you want to do. And so, and I'm sure if we did a little digging that it would equate to some of these things that you actually value and you feel are important to you. And sometimes I say, if you don't know your why, it's a good place to start by looking at your values, because your values make you kind of influence what you do and kind of defines who you are in part. And I feel like most anything that is you find worthy to you is a value to you as well. And so, you know, there's a question there about, do you know what's really important to you? Okay. And so you can maybe comment about that. And I'm gonna, if there's anything in the chat, Crystal or Bethany, you feel that we need to pause on, let me know, and I will be happy to stop.
Well, we're just interested in the book that you referenced. So Crystal did share that in the chat. That's excellent. Thank you, Michelle.
Okay, all right. Yeah, just let me know if I need to stop, if you see anything, but I appreciate all of you. And it's nice to know that some of you are mentioning that God and family, your education, some of those things are very important to you and things like that. And a lot of times that's a driving force, you know, in terms of how it shapes the things that we want to do and how we want to maybe help others and give back to the world. Okay, so look at how, and you know, we talked a little bit about that a little bit when we had that question about kind of exploring that a little bit more deeply. And so I think one of the things about this that I want to emphasize is that it's important for us to push ourselves to think about the how, and also find ways to take action on things that we're passionate about. Or in some cases, some of us are like problem solvers. And so we are always strategizing and looking for solutions around issues. But the important thing to know about the how is, although you have a strategy, it's important to know a lot of things that you want to accomplish. It's going to take other people besides yourself. You cannot tackle these things alone. Okay. So moving from 2020 to 2021 has enforced one thing to me. And one of the things is the power of the independency that we have with each other. And when we talk about independence, of course, you know, that means that I'm dependent on you, you're dependent on me. We are dependent on each other. And so when we live in a very, and so when I was looking at how our world has just shifted in the last 12 months, you know, of course, I knew we lived in a very global society, but I realized that we're even more so networked now than we were 12 months ago. If you think about how COVID has changed the way how we work and how we interact, we know that COVID hopefully will not be with us long, but it has shifted some things in terms of how we do, how we, like I say, how we work, how we interact. And even if you think about how the pandemic spread, it spread from one country, and that spread from that one country impacted the whole entire world. That is incredible. But it also points to the independence that we have. that the things that we do have consequence in one form or another. Even if you look at it from the business sense, a lot of the Fortune 500 countries, they have offices and employees around the world. You know, they have cross-sector partnerships. They have offices in various places. And so a lot of times they do these things because, one, they know competition is fierce, but I think they see the value that's important for them to be talking and sharing and collaborating together. And it's good to have a diverse group or pool of people to gather that information from, right? And so I feel that when we look at our strategies, don't forget how we need to be connected. You know, give some consideration. Who do we need to be partnering with or collaborating with? Who has done what I want to do? Have I spoken to them? Can I get some tips and feedback? Is there minefields that I can avoid? What skills do I need to learn? Some of you have talked about going to school and kind of looking at a career change. And so some of that may require some retooling. And so when you think about some of your goals and your strategies, it's important for you to kind of keep in mind that you definitely want to be deliberate and have a plan and prepare, as the slide indicates, but you also, it's going to take you working in concert with others. When you look at networking is a necessity. Like I say, overnight, I felt like everything just went digital on me, you know. And so we're using a lot of virtual platforms more than ever. I mean, I go to TikTok and I'm just as entertained looking at stuff on TikTok than I do maybe looking at a movie. I mean, it's just amazing to me how things have shifted. And then you think about today's session, we're on Zoom. And Zoom has really become the new norm in terms of how we gather and share information. So all these things are kind of complementary to each other, but I just want to say that these are things that we may have to take in consideration. So a question, you don't necessarily have to mention, you don't have to say anything, you can put something in the chat, but a question I want you to ponder is, what is one thing or goal you would like to accomplish that you can't do alone? Think about that for a minute. Okay, and so this is my last slide because I know I'm getting close to the time to wrap up here. And so my last point is activate. And I love the word activate because it's an action word and it means that you want to do something, you want to act. And it's about deciding what to do. And what does that look like when you want to activate your dreams? And so just some 3 points when we think about activating our dreams, whether you're thinking about it figuratively or literally, I think it's important to create your own inner power. It's important for you to look through how to do that in a way that is sound to you. Sometimes it could be prayer, it could be meditation. It may be another practice to kind of make you more centered so you can hear. And so I would say, think about creative ways and or environments that will allow you to do that. And we know without power, it's very hard to change things. Number 2, practice. It's important to try to learn new things, practice the things that you want to master. If I use dreaming as the analogy, one thing I can say about dreaming, it is a skill. If you haven't dreamed in a while, sometimes you have to kind of calm yourself or get yourself in a place to dream. And so it doesn't mean dreaming. It doesn't really mean dreaming when you're going to sleep. It could be dreaming as if you want to vision or forecast your future. And so sometimes you have to practice to do that, to make that. And then practice also helps creativity. And it's just a good way to be deliberate. And the last thing I want to say is persistence and perseverance. These 2 words go together. They are both needed for dream activation. So whatever you've set for yourself, persistence is keep trying again and again, regardless of the obstacles. And I feel like we know how to be persistent. And then also about perseverance, I think one thing that we can say about that is that whatever you're trying to do, don't give up no matter how long it takes. Sometimes the timeline that we set for ourselves may not be the timeline it would take to get things accomplished. So don't ever give up on discovering your dreams. And whatever we can do in extension to support you moving forward, just let us know we are here for you. So with that said, I'm gonna stop here and see if there's any questions or comments or feedback.
Michelle, this is so rich, and I appreciate the way you so simply broke down such complex pieces. But my response to it and my feeling of it is I'm not feeling overwhelmed. So I just appreciate the way that you laid out a 1, 2, 3, sort of a stepwise sort of 1, 2, 3 process that you can follow. And so I had different thoughts as you were going through, and I had something different that I was going to call out at the end as my big takeaway, but just in the last couple of seconds, you changed that.
Okay.
One of the things you have pinged for me is you just mentioned about, dreaming, like taking the time and not being afraid to stop and dream. And, I just transparently say I've been at a place where I certainly have had goals and I've accomplished a lot of goals and things, and there's things that I want to do, but honestly, if I really had to answer right now, like what would I want to see in the next 5 years? I've got some more tasking things. Like I'd like to see some things decluttered. I'd like to have some fun. I'd love to be debt free. Like I have some things like that, but truly dreaming, if I'm honest, I haven't taken the time to do that lately. So that's what I'm going to take away from this session. I'm going to keep the other pieces in mind, but I'm going to allow myself the time and space to dream.
That is beautiful. And I agree with you. I am I guess I'm on your street. I feel like I need to take more time to set out. I mean, I have goals, but beyond that, really thinking about, well, how do I really get some of these things in place? And to, like you say, taking those time to be reflective and really visioning out those things that I want to accomplish. So yeah. So definitely. It was for me too. I was speaking to me today too.
That's what we do on all these sessions. I see some other people responding too. So I'm going to kick it over to my co-host and ask them what their takeaways are from today. Herman, I'm going to come to you first.
Okay, well, I will say that I have found that if I take my dreams to other people, then they seem to get activated quicker. Or if I don't tell anybody about it, lots of times it'll just stay a dream forever. And so, I tend to, write them down and draw pictures of them and stuff like that. And with social media, I mean, I can throw up a post saying, about the dream, and then I get so many comments on it, and then that'll be encouraging, and then maybe I can even make it, have a better opportunity to make it better. So that's getting other people involved in that dream and knowing that I'm trying to do it. And then it doesn't seem so far-fetched when people say, oh man, you can do that. I know you can do that,
Yes, I was, sometimes you hear these God wink stories. And so really quick, one God wink story I heard just the other day was a guy who helped a lady who was stranded. She had ran out of gas. And so he had went back to her to kind of take her to the gas station so she'd get gas. He also gave her money. He wasn't going to do that initially, but he did. Found out that the lady some years ago from that years, had passed. And then she ended up getting reconnected with his mother. And she ended up being a caregiver for the mother. The mother was going through a long illness and they became very close. Found out they didn't even know each other. So the son found at some point realized that the person was the same person from that encounter. And then they became, close. And one of the things that she wanted to do was to go back to school and get her nursing degree. Well, the son ended up posting something online, not like a GoFundMe page, but something similar. And they ended up raising like over $30,000 for her to fulfill her dream of becoming a nurse.
Wow.
That's amazing.
And
That is
amazing.
amazing.
And it's because of just sharing and giving, extending. You just never know what people can do in their own power.
So good. That's so rich.
So, yeah.
All right, Bethany, what's your takeaway?
Just it's reassuring to hear from all these experts that we've had recently chime in onto some of those similar themes, and that finding your why was a new concept to me back when I first heard it. You kind of opened me to a different way of looking at that too, and how it really is very intersectional. And so it's not just about finding the why in your job. I am now understanding, because my brain doesn't always work like really structured and organized that way. That is why I love my job so much.
That's right.
It ties into the talents that I already have and feel passionate about, the values that I hold for both personal and what I want to accomplish in work. The skills and expertise that I have has kind of channeled my focus of what I do in both realms. So it's just really, it's reassuring to hear time and time again from experts in the field that is a driving force. So
it is very much so. So it just affirms that you're doing what you need to do.
That's so good. You guys, we could keep this thing going, but we are past our moment. This always the fastest time in my life on these Fridays, but it's also always so rich, so enlightening, and such an uplift. So I appreciate going into the weekend, having this as a frame for me. So we encourage all of you. Many of you have posted in the chat. Some of you are looking forward to reading the book and doing some other things, but take from this session what you need to move forward and make your dreams beyond a dream, but something that is actualized, something that becomes reality. Appreciate you all. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you hopefully back same time, same place, different topic next week. Bye, y'all.
All right. Bye-bye.